appears like you have no business trying to make sense of the Catholic Church's past. They unilaterally decided to prune the Bible of its books. They gave you 66 as well. The claim that God gave you 66 books is false, since those 66 books contain references to other works. You can see from the photo that the Bible is really old. Nevertheless, this area contains every single book. How about this heavy and enormous Bible? What are your thoughts about it? Likewise, that is a major one. That's a substantial sum. The year 1600 was the year of writing for this specific Bible. Additionally, I carried every book into this room, an enormous and ancient Bible. At that moment, exactly right now, although most people believe that the Bible is God's inspired message, the question of which books should be included and which should be excluded has persisted for a long time. Many people regard to these omitted texts, sometimes called the Apocrypha or the lost books, as the source of much dispute. We shall examine not only the background and relevance of these writings, but also the reasons behind their inclusion in the Holy Scriptures by Gino Jennings. To some extent, the connotation of the expression lost books is deceptive. Rather than being physically misplaced, the books in question were either cut out of the Bible or removed from it altogether. Several of these books, which were originally written in Hebrew, were heavily used by the apostles and disciples of Jesus throughout their time on earth. The Apocrypha section of the Bible includes a variety of texts, such as Tobit, Judith, Solomon's Wisdom, Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, Baruch, the 1st and 2nd Esdras, the 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Bel and the Yagan, the book of Joshua, Susanna, Esther, and the Epistle of Jeremiah. The Bible is comprised of 66 books, and many of those books enrich one another with historical or moral teachings. The elimination of these publications can be directly linked to the Catholic Church. Many believe that the Catholic Church purposefully omitted some books from the Bible, reducing it to the 66 books that are commonly found in most modern Bible translations. The Bible underwent a process of maturation that lasted millennia before it became what it is today. The early Christians received the Hebrew Scriptures, also called the Old Testament, from their ancestors. The intricate history of the Bible and the ways in which religion, power, and tradition all have a role in shaping it are both illuminated by this conversation. Gino Jennings is famous for two things. First, her distinctive take on the missing books of the Bible, and second, her unwavering and scripturally grounded preaching. The writings were never lost, he says. They were restricted on purpose, mostly by the Catholic Church, so they could control the Bible's narrative. According to Jennings, these texts provide helpful context that is consistent with the references to God's Word in the Bible. Recognizing the Holy Scriptures as a whole rather than just its parts is something Jennings stresses. In addition, he gathers these writings with the other 66 volumes, and he calls the whole thing the Holy Scriptures on multiple occasions. Allusions from the Bible are followed in this process. He claims that there is no indication in the Bible that there are more than 66 books. Jennings is at it again, drawing attention to the fact that the Bible alludes to parts that aren't part of the official 66 books. According to Jennings, these references show that the larger corpus of literature was appreciated and acknowledged during the Bible's time. To restore the Bible's integrity, according to Jennings, it is necessary to include these supplementary works. He thinks they're crucial for fully grasping the spiritual and historical background of God's Word. These writings cover a wide range of subjects, including the difficulties that people encounter in dealing with issues of faith, knowledge, prophecy, righteousness, and sin. I think it's crucial that I explain things clearly because a lot of people don't know their religious background. An old Bible that was given to me when I was a teenager is still with me right now. It was probably copyrighted when it was produced in 1805 or some other year. You can see from the last phrase that the Bible is also rather old and in a bad way. The fact that many individuals don't know their religious past makes me think it's crucial to let them know. I have a number of ancient books here, including a Bible that was given to me by someone many years ago. Depending on your perspective, it was either printed in 1805 or copyrighted while I was a teenager, or something like. It is clear that this Bible is quite ancient, yet it contains every book in the Bible. The camera can zoom in on an ancient Bible that is crumbling. This compilation contains a book called Ecclesiasticus, not Ecclesiastes. Chapter 11. Some people also call it the Book of Sirach. Another thing you'll see when you turn the page is that this Bible has a book in it that's called the Wisdom of Solomon. Consequently, we refrain from releasing any additional volumes. When I was around 18 years old, I did not yet exist. I did not, as far as I could tell. Conversely, for individuals of you who have been contributing and have noticed that certain individuals were unable to comprehend specific texts, "What kind of Bible are you using?" was written to me as an inquiry. So with the help of the employees who helped us focus in on this, we were able to get the book ready. The book is complete and ready to be published. Historical records indicate that the Bible, supposedly regarded as the world's oldest, is known as the Ethiopic Bible. The fact that it contains all of the scriptures and the fact that it originates from Ethiopia are both mentioned in this word. Viewers like you have no business trying to make sense of the Catholic Church's past. They unilaterally decided to prune the Bible of its books. They gave you 66 as well. One reason God did not give you 66 is that it contains allusions to other books. From what I gather, God did not bless you with 66. The Bible is huge and heavy, isn't it? Likewise, that is a major one. That one is incredibly important. This Bible, which has been in print since 1611, includes every book that is listed in the Bible. This chamber contains everything that has been accumulated since 1611. This ancient Bible is being read right now. Preaching from ancient Bibles that are on show in the pulpit is a common practice among many of your pastors and bishops. I'm sure you've seen antique Bibles like these in churches. Some of them even have 2 padlocks. Do you remember ever seeing that? Of all the ancient Bibles, nearly all of them have these copies of the books. I will show you how the Bible cites other works in the 66 volumes that you already have. So let's get down to brass tacks for now. Chapter 21, verse 14 of Numbers contains this verse. The book of the wars of the Lord documents his deeds in the books of Arnon and the Red Sea, which is why this is the case. There's talk of God's deeds at the Red Sea and in the Arnon books. The book of 2 Samuel is now up to chapter 4. May I inquire as to your meaning? The account of God's intervention on behalf of Israel in parting the Red Sea is detailed in both the book of Joshua and the War of the Lord. This book also discusses the same thing. I appreciate it. Do you think that's completely new to the audience? Nevertheless, it is included in 66 of your books. Chapter 21, verse 14 of Numbers contains this verse. Verses 14 of chapter 21 of the book of Numbers contain it. Keep moving forward. For this reason, both the wars of the Lord and the chronicles of Arnon detail his deeds at the Red Sea. Also, near the Moab-Ute border, there is a brook called the Brooks that eventually flows down to R's house. Starting with verse 17, we will go into the opening chapter of 2 Samuel. It is said in 2 Samuel 1:17 that through this mourning, David also conveyed his sadness for Saul and his son Jonathan. Yes, I understand. Also, he told them to teach the children of Judah how to bow properly. Proper use of the bow should be taught to Judah's offspring. The writing is plain to see. So, where is it? Within the pages of Jasher's book. I appreciate it. Which novel is it based on? You can find this data in Jasher's book. Now you have Jasher mentioned in the Bible. I understand. This is the crux of it. Sure thing. Jasher is at your service. I see your point. All right, I'm game. Chapter 29 and verse 29 of 1 Chronicles is where we are at the moment. I am located in the 66th book. I see your point. These allude to works that are supplementary to what you currently own. I appreciate it. Chapter 29 and verse 29 of 1 Chronicles is where we are at the moment. Yes, I understand. We will begin and end with a discussion of King David's conduct. How would you describe it? You can see that the prophet Samuel recorded them in his book. Hold on a second. Their appearance is attested to in Samuel's book. We are well versed in Samuel's story anyway. I see your point. At last we have it. All right, I'm game. Also in the book that Nathan the prophet penned. Ah, I get it. I appreciate it. Everyone knows that Nathan was a prophet. That much is certain. I see your point. But most people don't know that Nathan has written a book as well, also in the book that Nathan the prophet penned. In the Bible, the prophet Nathan wrote a book. In addition, I also, who wrote the book? Gad the seer. Gad wrote that in his book. The Observer, the Observer. I see your point. One of Jacob's sons was Gad, and I knew him. I agree. Would you have guessed that Gad had penned a novel, though? I see your point. I would like to proceed at my own pace. In your possession are 66 books. I appreciate it, because they allude to events that are detailed in other books elsewhere. I see your point. Of the 66 that are in your possession, I see your point. I see your point. Here, listen closely. The book of 2 Chronicles is now on its 12th chapter. In the Bible, I tell you to follow me. In the Bible, I tell you to follow me. I appreciate it. William, where do you stand? Chapter 12, verse 15 of the book of 2 Chronicles is read. How would you describe it? Let us now turn to Rehoboam's deeds. As for the deeds, the measures implemented, yes, I understand. Above all things, King Rehoboam. Could it be that the prophet Shemaiah documented them in his book? Shemaiah is a name you may be familiar with. Are you familiar with her? I see your point. It's common knowledge that some people plagiarize. Shemaiah, wouldn't you agree? I see your point. It is Shemaiah. Well then, all right. In contrast, you have Shemaiah. I appreciate it. Plus, most people are completely unfamiliar with the man, and I see your point. Are you understanding me? Could it be that the prophet Shemaiah documented them in his book? Is their existence documented in the book of Shemaiah? Here we have the prophet. Here we have the prophet. Furthermore, concerning the lineage of Ado the prophet, are you trying to tell me that Ado is also used? And the prophet Ado as well? The Observer. Concerning the genealogy, Jeroboam and Rehoboam were perpetually at odds with one another. Pay attention to this. William, where do you stand? The book of 2 Chronicles is now up to chapter 21. Also, we won't be limiting ourselves to just the books of the Old Testament. I see your point. We shall travel the length and breadth of the new when we arrive. I see your point. I will show you that not even the Bible you have on hand can accomplish that. I see your point. The whole body of information concerning Jesus, I see your point. We are now going to talk about verse 34 of chapter 22 of 2 Chronicles. The rest of Jehoshaphat's acts, including the first and final, will follow. Yes, I understand. They are mentioned in the book of Jehu, the son of Hananiah, as one can see by looking. Soon after I came some information regarding Jehu to read. But did you hear that Jehu has also written books that have been published? More especially verse 34 of chapter 22 of 2 Chronicles. How would you describe it? The rest of Jehoshaphat's acts, including the first and final, will follow. Yes, I understand. In case you were curious, they are recorded in the book of Jehu. Just read the book of Jehu for all the details. Since they are descendants of Hananiah, the annals of Israel's monarchs have a mention of each of these individuals. Hold on a second. Can you tell me where he is mentioned? A mention of who is mentioned is found in the book of the Kings of Israel. The chapters 9 and 10 of 2 Kings contain this Jehu. This viewpoint asks viewers to think about how the biblical story would have been narrowed in scope and depth if these writings hadn't been there. In an effort to reclaim the whole understanding of the sacred text, Gino Jennings and others are rereading these parts, this time unencumbered by the constraints of earlier decisions. Not only are the latter volumes profoundly important from a theology, but also a cultural and historical perspective. They shed light on religious rights, moral dilemmas, and societal institutions. They provide insight into the religious practices, social structures, and ethical dilemmas of their respective eras of composition. The teachings of Solomon provide a thorough understanding of wisdom and justice, to name just one example. However, themes like religion, family, and divine intervention are explored in the Book of Tobit. By including these works, a stronger basis for comprehending the Bible as a historical record is provided. In it, early Jewish and Christian communities' understandings of God's connection with humanity are laid bare for readers. Modern readers might not be exposed to important cultural and theological concepts that shape biblical teachings if these works weren't available. Important problems with the Bible have been highlighted since the Apocrypha is missing. Who gets to judge which parts of the Bible are inspired if, as Jennings always points out, God inspired them all? According to Jennings, no one individual or group should have the power to decide how far God's word can be stretched. The Church may have removed books from the Bible's canon, changing its scriptural base, whether on purpose or by accident. By bringing up important points, Jennings argues that the removal of these passages is driven more by human agendas than by God's desire. He is presenting a more all-encompassing critique to the conventional Christian practices by incorporating these writings. Churches, in his view, have too much power and have turned the gospel into a commodity, which he strongly disagrees with. In his writings, Jennings argues for a return to a more authentic religion based on the Bible rather than human custom. He accomplishes this by presenting the Bible in a more all-encompassing light. Pastors and other religious leaders who dismiss these books without understanding their context deserve special criticism from Jennings.